Welcome, everyone, to the Lighter Mind podcast. In the Lighter Mind, we explore spirituality, personal growth, trauma, recovery, and the path to wholeness. The Lighter Mind podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any forms of mental illness. We are not licensed therapists unless otherwise noted, and these are experiential conversations. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Lighter Mind. We are back here after the holiday, and hope you fellas had a good holiday. I know it was good for me, kind of getting away for a little bit, decompressing, and kind of slowly getting back in the, my routines a little bit. So today, Mr. Allen had brought up a topic that I thought was very interesting, and it was running away from your problems, which is something that, for me, I mean, being in recovery is the basis of my drug and alcohol use. I mean, I think that, and I think Crow can probably relate to that too, but I think that I wanted to pass it over to you, Alan, because I think that this topic is something that's pretty ubiquitous to everyone, just running away from big problems, small problems, responsibilities, all those kinds of things, and the various ways that we disassociate or detach or procrastinate or or physically run away from problems. So so I want to pass it over to you, Alan. What are your thoughts on this?
All right. So let me set how this came into my mind is well, we're going to do a disclaimer. The names and places have been changed to protect the innocent. So I had heard about this person who grew up in the Midwest, kind of a farm person, ended up going to law school, and then right out of law school, got divorced, and that sent him into a spiral of drugs and alcohol, which, 10 years later, I think are still where he's at. So, got basically kicked out of his law firm because he wasn't taking care of clients. So he decided he would go and move to a Pacific Northwest city, and start a new life. And got there, got a job with a law firm, same thing, drugs, alcohol, not doing your job. Ended up becoming a bartender and just spending years there, kind of just spiraling through that drug and alcohol thing. And then ended up moving here to Colorado and just working a regular job now. But and this is the no good deed goes unpunished. He had a roommate whose girlfriend had a dog that she couldn't control, and it attacked another dog. And it was really the woman's fault because she's not a good dog owner. Um, and then she said she was going to put this dog down. So he stole the dog and took it back to the family farm in the Midwest and got arrested for stealing a dog. And so, as the story goes, he thought, he had talked to some people that said, you can get a new identity and just go somewhere else. We know people who can give you a new identity. You're going to not be, John Doe anymore. You're going to be Joe Smith, and you can start over. And to me, I'm like, that is nothing changes, right? Nothing. The behavior is just the same behavior over and over. And I have plenty of friends. I have a friend who, has always told me he's chasing things, but he's actually, I think, running from things. Like he moved to Europe thinking things would be different. I don't think they will. I hope they are. I hope he finds what he's looking for, but I don't think I think he's running. And I have another friend who lives in California who years ago wanted to move here to escape his problems. Like if I leave California, everything will change. I'll come to Colorado and I'll be a new person. And it just got me thinking about how we do that. I mean, we do escapism through drugs and alcohol. Um, like place doesn't matter, right? I mean, my friend that was in Texas that was a heroin addict that moved here left because he came out of, and we've talked about this, out of the jail, or they detoxed him by just leaving him in a cell, and moved here because that's all the money he had. He got on the bus, went as far as he could, and has been sober since. But when he got back to his house, everyone was still, shooting up heroin, and it really wasn't going to be the best situation for someone who's got that problem. So I just started thinking about, escapism, drinking, drugs to deal with your issues rather than face them. And, and maybe we don't have the answer, like how you turn and face that, but you can't run. Some people think you can run forever, but you can't run forever. Eventually it's going to catch you. Right. Um, so that's kind of what got me thinking about this. And I know, having a recovery journey for you guys and me on whatever level, um, you know, obviously we all have run from our problems, and then now we're facing them, and, you're always going to have problems. That's number one, you're always going to have problems. Well, the people that don't have problems are in graveyards, right? No matter what, like, you could have a bazillion dollars. There's going to be some problem. Your hoochie ass wife is cheating on you, or, your
Hmm.
kids hate you, whatever it is. And so it's not the financial means solve problems. It's not, so I just wanted to kind of have a conversation around this, since we've all kind of run from our problems, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a big one, and I think that I mean that's one of the things that they talk about in recovery is that a lot of people try to fix their drug and alcohol problem through a geographic change, and not understanding, like you were saying, that that problem is intrinsic. That problem is inside of them, and they're going to carry that wherever they are. And a lot of people, I think people in recovery don't recognize that, for one, we can find drugs and alcohol anywhere. I mean, I've done it before. I can move to a new city tonight and go find drugs and alcohol. Like, we know exactly who to talk to, we know exactly like the places that we need to go. But I think that it is incredibly common, especially in drug and alcohol recovery, to try to escape like whatever uncomfortable situation that we're going through, because one of the things that I think a lot of humans really struggle with is dealing with discomfort, but I think people in recovery struggle with dealing discomfort even a little bit more. And that's because we're so unfamiliar with what those emotions actually are, because we're so used to, we when we're feeling happy, sad, anxious, depressed, excited, any of those kinds of things, we numb those emotions out with drugs and alcohol. So we don't get familiar with, like, okay, this is what this emotion feels like. And so when we start getting sober and we start to experience those emotions for the first time, they become chaotic for us. And I think that it's common to, to want to physically move somewhere, or to disassociate in the moment, to try to kind of detach from your problems, or try to procrastinate when we know have some type of big responsibility. But this is my parents did this to me when they were trying to force me to get sober. They sent me to go get sober in New Mexico. I went to rehab in New Mexico, got high there. Then they sent me out to North Carolina to go get sober there, got high there. I mean, it's just like my problem. I was just carrying my problems with me, not understanding that, like, there was some deeper work that actually needed to get done. But getting to the point of becoming willing to deal with your problems, that's a whole other issue, right?
Right. Well, and in my case, I remember years ago when I had a failing business, and I was, like close to $1 million in debt. And I had a roommate who was a former bandmate of ours, who worked for like a printing place, and he was like, I can make you a new birth certificate. I can do this. I can do that. You'll just become this person, and we'll say, somehow like fake your death, and you can just become a new person. It's like, ooh, that's a great idea. And, I was drinking then, and I'm like,
Mhm.
then you sober up and you're like, no, that isn't a great idea. That's a terrible idea, like you had this whole thing, like you go to the hospital. Well, you look through like newspapers from months after you were born, look for a baby that died that was a couple months, and then you go to that hospital and you get that birth certificate because they don't have the death certificate. And then you go and you got a new birth certificate, and then you can get everything, and I'm like, hmm. And it's probably genius in its own kind of twisted way. But I'm like, well, look, I'm the one who borrowed all this money. I'm the one who had a dream to open this business, and it's, failed. So why am I just going to walk away from it? I'm going to face the music. And it sucked. It really sucked. I mean, that was a horrible experience, but the one thing I came out of it was with a level of fiscal responsibility that I didn't have previous to that, which is paid off. Like if that business had been moderately successful, I'd probably still be living, on credit cards and like, woo, whatever, 30% interest, it's fine, or like I had this girlfriend years ago who had so much credit card debt, and she was like, I'm going to like, had no money like on her credit cards. Like the interest alone was higher than her minimum payment, which is all she could make. But somehow she would like get another credit card and then go to like Crate and Barrel and buy a $3,000 armoire, because it's cool and you got to have the right look in your house. And I'm like, whoa, huh. Like when she met me, I had a chair. Like everything in my house was gone. There was a chair and a little tiny like TV, and that was it. I slept on a futon on the floor, and I'm like, this is cool. I'm fine, you know. But instead of saying, "Well, I should be fiscally responsible and you know own up to these problems," just like run from it, and then get that dopamine hit of buying the fancy furniture or
Mm,
chair or whatever, instead of saying, fuck, I should really just tighten my belt and get this taken care of, because
mm,
the long term gains are way bigger than the short term pleasure. Like where I'm at now compared to 25 years ago when I went bankrupt is night and day. Like,
mm,
and it took facing all the mistakes I'd made, stopping drinking, marrying the right woman, which is pretty key. Um, and just looking at the future to make me realize that, hey, you aren't dying like you thought you were going to die at 20 when you were partying, and 30 and 40. I mean, I was sure I was going to be dead. Now I'm like, fuck, I'm going to, pardon, there's my swearing again. Um, now I feel like I'm going to live forever. Like, I go over see my mom. She's 93. Doo, 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 doo. I'm like, no, no, please, no. So anyhow, that's kind of my take on part of it, and it's all the same. Like, spending money is just as big a drug as doing drugs, right? Like
uh-huh.
you get this like quick rush. You're like, wow, this is great. And then most people end up with buyer's remorse, which I've done a million times in my life. Like buy something, like, oh, what a month later, that was stupid, especially if you're making payments on it. You're like,
Mm.
wait, I got to pay on this thing for another 4 years and I don't even like it anymore. Like the thrill is gone, you know?
Mm.
Um, so, and it all ties in, right? Like I was running, for me, I ran from my mistakes and from my inability to run a business successfully. And part of the way I dealt with that was drinking, eating too much, um, you know, kind of being a little slutty with bad girls. Did I really? I'm lucky I didn't catch something bad. Because, uh, yeah, I remember this one girl's like, "You
That
love,"
could
yeah,
that
yeah,
could have been another long-term payoff.
yeah, maybe, like back when I was drinking and
Uh,
having a lot of fun. I told this kid who, he was like me when he was younger. Always wanted a girlfriend, right? Like when we were in the band, Chris had a girlfriend. The other guys were all like, well, except, and I was always like, I just want a girlfriend. But then I remember telling this guy, and this was probably terrible advice because this guy was like, oh, all these girls want to have sex with me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so do it. He goes, well, what if I catch something that kills me? I'm like, well, oh, poor dude fucked himself to death, And now I look back, I'm like, well, that was terrible advice, But at the time, I'm drinking and partying, like, yeah, man, it's great. So, anyhow, let me turn it over to Crow because he's been sitting here looking at me with the grin on his face. But
No, that was great. That was great. What a great topic. Because for a second there, when you were changing the name, I thought you were telling my story.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I'll
you
let you
could
tell
you
your
you
own
know
story.
you could have been the
Yeah.
entire time. I mean, some of the occupations were a little different, but I think that's all of our story in addiction recovery. Hopefully that we figured out is that I think in hindsight, as I look back to my 20 good plus maybe career of drinking, I made a good run of it, but I came late to that game. I started in my mid 30s with drinking. And as I went back and realized the patterns, was that if I look at the pattern, not the addiction, but the pattern begets the addiction itself, I think. And in addictive ways, as we get older, if we don't understand it and we've never been taught with compassion, that we're avoiding from a very, very early age. And that was what I realized, was that my first addiction was to run, to hide, to change, to get out of, to escape. That was my first addiction. That started when, Alan, uh, the story of my upbringing well enough to know that, boy, I fawned. I fawned through a lot of those years, and I shut down and I closed down, and that was how I handled things. And when there was emotions, those were sort of channeled into daydreams. Yeah, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I think I lived most of my early, probably half of my life, as The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, jumping from, being an actor to being in a band and trying to find myself and yet portray myself in other characters and other different roles. All of those are a healthy means, but they're still an attempt to try to find myself in an exterior way. And that's really, as I look back on the picture of my life, that's really what I was doing. So when the wheels really come off in our life and we're really faced with the big shit, man, and there's no place to go, addiction's perfect because I can't physically leave, but I can emotionally sit here on the couch where the world and responsibilities seemingly see me, but I'm blasted and I can't feel a thing. And there was how my drinking started. Is I couldn't just up and leave a wife at that time and a daughter and a family. You can't just do that, but you can check out. And that's how my addiction really started. Because I didn't like the taste of alcohol, never did. Even though I worked for Budweiser, they gave me all the beer I wanted, never drank it, gave it away. Until one day I acquired the taste because I liked the effect of where it got me. And that's how my addiction started to substance. So really for me, I realized that, and I'm still working on that, because the nervous system is what I've realized is hits first, that says this is unsafe. We need to just shut down, sit on the couch, start doom scrolling. When I know there's a million things going on that I need to take care of that day. So I now know I'm ADHD as hell. Oh, that's bad. So I really have to rein that in, and oftentimes really be very, very discerning in terms of what I really don't want to do and what needs to get done that I know is a simple task. So there's always that proficiency in me to want to just shut down. And it's still there. And I'm almost a decade, Kyle. I'm almost a decade in, brother, of sobriety now.
Congratulations,
come
dude.
July, dude, it'll be a party. But come July, I'll be a decade into this now, Styles. And you know,
Wow.
I'm telling you, it's still there. And when that aversion to responsibility kicks into my head, I now have learned over the years to use that in a different way and to really, but I think maybe you can almost break this into like a 3 segmented talk on how to recognize it, how it feels in the moment, and then what to do about it. Right. Because it's like this present moment awareness that I never had, that I'm still working on. I'm still working on that very hard. But to be more in the moment, not in the past, not in the future, because that's where I get wobbly. I get speed wobbles when I'm outside of that. And the wheels do have a tendency to come off again. So I need to bring it into that, because you know the past is filled with, you know, fear, and the future's filled with hope. And fear is aversion and hope is suffering. So what I'm finding the more in sobriety is the ability to look at how I ran. And because that's primary to my addiction. That was primary, I think, to all of our addiction, because we didn't feel safe enough to sit with anything. And we were never taught that. And I think that what can we do right here, right now, for anybody listening to this that's struggling with that, is to understand it's not all your fault in that you weren't taught that. It was a response that you think is who you are. And so you're basing future responses, and you're trying to build a future based upon your responses from the past. And it's to know 50-50 that I think that what I've learned anyway is that I wasn't taught, but it's still my responsibility to reparent myself in a way which means ultra compassion, and giving myself a whole lot of forgiveness. And, you know, because for me, this comes down to responsibility, right? And I learned that at the end of a finger wag. And that, you know, I just blew that off as a kid. Like, well, fuck that. I want none of that if it's going to come in that form. I didn't realize until I sobered up, unfortunately, at 52. I had to take this long to learn that lesson, that that's where your power is. And so the more I take, even of everybody else's, that empowers me all that much more. I did not know that. And it's through that avenue of compassion that we have to go to get ourselves to that point. And so, yeah, it takes a long journey, but it's an inward journey to be able to go back out. It's definitely an inward one. And Stoicism has taught me a great deal on that, which is claim it, own it. Yeah, somebody hit me in my car. Somebody T-boned me. Whatever the situation may be, I was still there. I allowed that to happen. What was my part in it? And so now I'm looking at life more in that regard, and gobbling up those monopoly bucks in that sense, you know, to take responsibility, because I'm not giving that away anymore. And I've found that puts me here in the moment more too. Is I don't know about tomorrow and any problems that may come, but I know I don't have to run from them anymore, because today I don't know how to deal with it, but future Crow, tomorrow's Crow version, will be able to handle it. He's just not there yet, but give me a week and I'll be a different human, be a different person, and I'll be ready to step into that space. But, you know, that's what I think on that topic. But it's a fantastic one, because when it does creep into my head, like I want to get out of some shit, that's primary for me now, and I know it is for you, Kyle. That's an indicator. Hey, I'm getting slippery, and if I don't, pay attention here now, then downstream effect of that is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And for us in recovery, and substance abuse recovery, now that can mean, oh, sure, I could just have one down the road, downstream. So we gotta hit these sort of things upstream, and that's a beautiful topic, and that's why I love this one. It's because
Yeah.
this is how it
So,
pops up first.
oh, for sure. So both of you touched on that responsibility a little bit. And I I really wanted to dig a little bit more into that, and how do we actually, because responsibility is an actionable step, right? And so I wanted to give anyone who's listening, like this, like, what do you guys actually do to take responsibility for yourself and your actions? Because for me, it started with doing something along the lines of a personal inventory so that I had tangible proof of my shortcomings, my defects of character, like the way that the patterns that I use in all of my relationships. I needed some type of tangible proof to be kind of shoved in my face so that I had no way of, like, you know, getting out of that. I
Mm-hmm.
needed proof for myself so that, and there was a lot of humility within that, but it's very, very tough to get to that point where, like, if you're avoiding responsibility, I mean, you don't just wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I'm going to start taking responsibility for my life, because you don't even know what the fuck that means. What does it actually mean to take responsibility for your life? What does it mean to take responsibility for the amount of selfishness that you have, to the amount of, like, self-seeking behavior that you have? What does it mean to take responsibility for how your behaviors impact other people? Like, a lot of people, like, they don't even know where to start with that. So what do you guys typically do, like, when you're, if let's call it like the practice of taking responsibility for our own shit? Like, what do you guys, what does your practice look like? When you've done something wrong, when you have some type of behavior that you're trying to overcome, what do you do?
Well, I think to that, if I can speak to that, is what we have to understand is what's the opposite. What's the opposite? What is there to gain when you do take responsibility? Is what you realize is that you've given away, which is your choice. You gave away your choice. You can't act responsible. You can't live up to your potential and you can't even keep yourself safe. Then others are going to do that for you. I mean, parents are going to send you to a recovery center. The law may catch up to you. People won't let you in their establishments because you're too obnoxious, and you know. So you're giving away your choice, and then you're going to spin that and play the victim to protect that and project that. One of the interesting things you said also, Kyle, was that you have to come to terms with how selfish you really are. And along with that, you're going to have to confront things that you don't want to confront. Or here's the other thing that was really cool about what you just said, was that those things start confronting you. It's just you aren't ready for it, because you have to confront what your dragons, in Campbell's terms, are already confronting in you to force you to deal with them. So that is your shadow self already engulfing you, saying, you better pay attention. So this is not just a whisper in the form of a call, but it is the actual 4x4 over the head. and they've already engulfed you and you didn't realize it. And so it's that process of individuation that Jung speaks about, that it encroaches us, right? If we don't turn and face our shadows, so says Jung, by the age of 30, your shadow will be approaching you. Your shadow will confront you. And it's true. It's very true, because it will just overtake you. So now's the time that you're going to have to turn and face that. And it's going to take a deep amount of, as you said, that self-assessment. And with that, hopefully what's going to come is what you spoke to, is humility, to realize you just got your ass handed to you. You really did. The universe just handed you your ass, because what's coming up inside you needs to be dealt with, and you need to wrap inside that shit like a blanket, and until it becomes you, and you realize you are capable of all those things that you tried to deny and run and hide from. So until that time, it won't happen, and you'll continue to run outward, and that's the challenge. You have to become what is within you. There's no other way. And there has to be a level of creativity in that, to understand that. If that answers that question, Kyle, because
Yeah, I think I'm trying to. That was very, very insightful. I think what I'm really trying to do is give people like a tangible thing that they can do. When they have something. So, and I wanted to touch on something that you said too, that is useful for the listeners to know. So we talked, what was it, 2 or 3 podcasts ago? We were talking about the shadow work.
Yes.
And I think that, like, for one, when we're trying to take responsibility for something, we have to first recognize that it exists in the first place. And one of the easiest ways to be able to do that, which is what we were talking about, is some of that shadow projection, and like, if you spot it, you got it. And so this kind of wraps into like the last couple of podcasts that we were talking about, which is, for one, asking ourselves good questions. So if someone pisses you off, leaning into some of that, that curiosity, and be like, okay, what is it about this other person that is upsetting me right now? That usually means that this other person is a reflection of something that I'm not taking responsibility for right now, or something that is unhealed within my being. And I try to tell people that, and it pisses them off every single time that I tell them, because they recognize like a good amount about themselves in that moment. And and the first time someone told me that, that if you spot it, you got it, I was like, well, shit, because I have a giant pile of shit that I have to deal with now, because everyone is pissing me off. Everyone does something that reminds me of myself in some way. But then, back to the original thought, is like, okay, now that we've identified that this is something that I recognize in someone else, that I see in myself, what do we do with that now? What do we do once we have it?
Okay. And I think on that topic, you had mentioned a great point where we need to take personal inventory. That's a great start. Now we have to also understand what was lost in the process. Is I don't trust myself anymore. I don't trust who I think I am. I don't trust who I think I thought I was. And in fact, with my substance use, I got so delusional, I started to think I was who I thought I was. And it was so far off the mark from who I thought I was. And I began to think everything I think I thought. It just becomes a circuitous wheel of stupidity. And to get outside of that is to rebuild trust. So along with that personal inventory, the next step is, what are you going to do about it? How do we rebuild trust in ourselves? And that means, what am I going to do in my personal life to improve upon myself in other in other aspects? Okay. In other areas of my life, how am I going to improve, clean up, as Alan said, the fiscal responsibility piece? How about the health and fitness piece of my own body, which I neglected? How about my relationships piece? How about my spiritual piece? How about my inner peace and spending? This is the scariest and hardest one. Not all those exterior things, but the scariest one. How about some solitude, where I really sit and journal and work on myself, which a lot of people don't want to do, but I have to do it as a discipline and mark it down, write these things down, so that over time I see that I'm sticking to them and building a sense, regaining a sense of trust in myself, that I do have the initial discipline to stick with something, and I'm working on me and I'm doing something about it. And the whole ecology of those practices put together start to inform us that we're working towards improvement. And it gives us a greater sense of confidence and inner sense of self-worth that is now something to move forward in a variety of ways. Right? So it all ties together. It all, and though we don't think so at the outset, but it does. And I like that you said personal responsibility, because and that in every regard, because we need to rebuild a sense of trust in ourselves and regain that, because that's only through that path of not self-care, but self-discipline and doing the difficult things, that we're going to gain a sense of self-respect. And that's what we really need to do, is start working on what is it going to take for me to build that respect back for myself.
Okay, I'm stepping in here. So I got an email. I'm on a mailing list for this Super Age website, which is basically I don't know, they have a lot of cool shit. But today was talking about New Year's goals, why they succeed, why they fail, and it kind of ties into this. So I'm going to read a little bit. So they talk about long-term goals. So your long-term goal is, I want to be sober, right? So there's your direction, right?
Yes.
But that's much harder, really. Like me, I'm going to lose 40 pounds. Well, that's harder. Like, the big picture is hard. So they have this thing where they're like, um, long-term goals set your direction, right? Process goals create traction. So that's the baby steps. And that really, to me, is super important. Like, these little steps. Like, if you're going to say, well, tomorrow I'm going to be sober and everything's going to be perfect. We know it didn't. How many times before you got traction and it actually stuck? A lot.
Lost count.
Right, right. And then that gives change that lasts. So they basically say in this email from Super Age that direction comes from long-term goals. Traction comes from process, and everything is process. You guys know I love that. Brewing is process. Everything is process. And then adaptation comes from feedback, right? So I'm trying to sober up. This is my long-term goal. And this is the little baby step I took, but it didn't work, right? So I need to adapt to this failure and figure out what will work, right? So to me, you need to set the goal and then take those baby steps, and I get it that you want to be clean and sober and whatever. I want to be 180 pounds tomorrow, but I got 40 to go. So it's probably not going to happen, right? Unless I have a really good deuce tomorrow.
It will.
So,
eventually.
right. And that's the eventually, right? So it's, and this goes back to the immediacy we always talk about in this modern society, that people want it now, change now. I want this now, right? Without challenges. So one of my new things I do every night when I do my gratitudes, when I fall asleep and my prayers and, you know, is I ask the universe to give me challenges. Like, I
Hmm.
don't want an easy life. I
Hmm.
don't want to, wake up and, they're like, oh, well, you've got like the worst possible thing. Then you're going to die in 6 minutes. Like that challenge. Yeah, I'm not so excited by that, but I don't want it to be easy. Right.
Hmm.
But that wouldn't have been me when I was drinking. Probably not you when you were drinking.
No,
Right. Or
no.
Kyle, like avoidance and the easy life kind of go hand in hand. Right. Or so you think, right? Like I'm coasting through life. I'm just getting wasted all the time. Fuck it all. I'm just going to do this and whatever comes, right? And then once you sober up and you start realizing, hey, the life, some people say life is hard. I don't think life is hard. I think we make life hard. Like,
Correct.
like really living day to day is pretty easy. I mean, society makes it hard because you got to have money, but I think our little brains make things way harder than they are, right? Like when I first started thinking I need to make money and invest, and it seemed overwhelming. Even when I started brewing as a home brewer, it seemed hard. When I opened a brewery, it seemed hard. When I moved it to a bigger brewery, and I was, wow, this is really hard. Well, with time and baby steps, it all became easy. And then now with the money thing for me, I'm not saying it's easy, but I look and I'm like, it's not that hard. This is, everyone is like, oh, to become a millionaire, it's super hard. No, it really isn't. You got to have some discipline. Same with being sober, and same with everything that you want to be good at. A little discipline every day, being aware, being responsible, and just paying attention to what is affecting your life and how your actions are affecting your life.
Hmm.
So, so to me, the whole process, which this talks about, is those little baby steps. Like I have a goal, and we've talked
Yeah.
about that. The boat that goes 1 degree off course, leaving New York instead of in London, ends up in Africa or whatever. You know, um, so it's that baby steps, that like 1%. That whole like 1% better a day. At the end of the year,
Yeah.
you're, hugely better, right?
I love that. I love what you're saying too about the long-term goal and the process. And out of the gate, it's discipline. So, Kyle, to answer your question more specifically, I don't believe, as you said, and this new age, what is it?
Super age.
Super age. I like them. I
Yeah.
like them. Super age. That's cool. I'm gonna have to look them up. Um, it- but what starts? It needs to start as discipline out of the gate. But from there, it becomes habits and it becomes standards. Those are more important to me than goals, is my standards. Because I know that if I have the discipline initially, it will become the habit that is now my new standard for myself. And that will get that goal and maybe some other ones too that I didn't plan on, but that I will prove to myself down the road I'll be worthy of. But also more specifically is that I know that the way my brain works, and I know that I'm really good at falling into routines and habits like I did when I was drinking, because I was really good at that. I didn't have to think about it. It just happened every day. I found a way because it was a habit. So I know I'm really good at those. I realized a couple of years ago, Alan, you've been following me, and Kyle a little bit, with my fitness journey that I went on. Well, I didn't know where to begin and what to do. You helped me tremendously on that road, Alan. But what I knew I needed to do was have initial discipline, that spark out of the gate to get me going into the gym. And Kyle, you were there that day and said, "What the hell are you even doing here, Crow?" Uh, to now, it is just a habit. I don't even question it. is, and I don't need to document and write them down. I don't need to do anything of that nature anymore because it's become my new habit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the way it goes. And I have a standard now and a way I feel about myself, which is entirely different than who I was 2 years ago.
Right. Well,
So,
I mean, that's perfect. Like, so I worked out forever, and got in the best shape I'd ever been in. And then this back thing happened and whatever. But, I set my New Year's resolution to start December 1st. And I actually lost weight over Christmas, which was pretty good for me because, um, and I've been going, we got the little gym in the next room over, and I've been
and
pretty darn consistent. I mean,
how long how
Mhm.
long out was your goal?
to lose this weight now?
Well, back then, it was a long time, right?
Oh, yeah, I didn't
So,
yeah,
yeah.
right, but
So
it took
what
every day, like, and it was fits and starts. It's like when you sober up, it's fits and starts. Like, I worked out, was really good, then kinda backslid a little, and this is this. So that's why I set it for December 1st, because 'cause I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna set it to December 1st, so by
Mhm.
January 1st, it'll actually be a habit." And then I can be
Yes.
like,
Yes.
I'm doing okay. So I've been working out again, been re-upped my little subscription for the exercise bike and, get on that thing, and got my blood flow restriction bands, and I just doing one set to failure. That's it right now, which
Mhm.
we went for a Porsche club drive with our buddies yesterday, and I had worked out Saturday. Uh, and man, I was sore holding that steering wheel and going flying around turns. I'm like, everything's like, oh, but that pain to me is good because that means something's happening, right?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that
Mhm.
goes with coming off drugs or alcohol. It's painful, right?
Mhm.
You're having to deal with all the shit you didn't want to deal with for however many years, and you just got to turn and face that pain and say, and have someone that that's been through it, right?
Mhm.
And that's probably why sponsors come in and step programs, because they've been through it and they've felt the pain. And we've talked about this, just
Mhm.
the pain of existing, and especially if you don't have purpose. I think those people, my purpose is to drink or cause chaos or drink or do drugs and cause chaos, or, you know, and, I saw this
They
thing,
don't have a job
uh,
to do.
and I saw this thing the other day and it just kind of freaked me out. It was this guy who apparently died, got hit by lightning, his house, and it went through his head on the phone. And he woke up in the morgue, and, apparently, said that he, and it's kind of the same story with these people you go and that you go through, but he said there was no like joy or sadness going through the process. But once he got there, everything that was shown to him was the pain he had caused other people in his existence. And that really made this guy like change his life, because he didn't want, when he actually died, to have to it's like watching a movie of all the terrible things you've done. And I was like,
Mhm.
holy shit,
Mhm.
I gotta be a good guy, So,
Yeah.
again, it's process. So, and I think what happens is we beat ourselves up way too much when we fail. And instead of saying, all right, I'm going to get up, dust off,
Well,
and push again, you just fall back into that rut.
you
Right.
said a couple of great things in there too, and one was the reframe of why this pain now feels good. And that's when we're in real recovery, that's the ability to be able to go, yeah, this sucks, but it's still better than that. And it's a reframe. And yes, I'm sore, but, and I'm not swole,
Yeah.
but now my dopamine receptors are also looking long-term reward and not immediate payoff and immediate gratification. And that's big for us in addiction recovery. We have to find a way to get that reward mechanism down the road, not here in front of me now. And it comes through that when we have that insight that, oh, this is good pain. not bad pain. And if I can live with this pain, which is physical, well, maybe I can sit with an emotion that I've never understood what those things were. Let me maybe take a look at those too.
Well,
So
and dealing with sitting in silence is hard, right? Years
totally.
ago, I read a thing saying how Westerners, especially men, always have to have a TV on, a radio on, because they can't be alone with their thoughts, right?
Hmm.
And I love sitting in silence and I love to meditate. But yesterday, one of the couples we were out driving with afterwards, one of the guys was talking and he was saying how he always has to have noise on and he
Hmm.
can't understand. His wife is of Chinese origin, how, meditation and all these Chinese kind of things just don't happen because he can never shut his brain off.
Yeah.
And, and that's process too. We've talked about this, the
Yeah.
meditation step and how hard it was when you first started. And it was impossible for me. And it still is like, I like every night I do a little prayer. And then Nick Cave's email this morning was talking about prayer and
Hmm.
how he gets on his knees every night and prays. And he said how hard it is because the thoughts come into your mind. And that happens
Hmm.
to me, man. I get down there and I'm like, you know, just praying for the world, for peace, for the wars to end, for people to start fighting over little chunks of land or whatever the hell they're doing. And then I pray for you guys and I pray for the, everyone I love and then my wife and my family and my dogs, but all these thoughts, and it's like meditation. Like I can meditate now and the thoughts don't come in, but somehow like doing a prayer and gratitudes, it's just like shoo, 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 all these things trying to stop me. But I know that with process, eventually I'm going to be able to sit there in my moment
Hmm.
in complete peace and tranquility and radiate this love that I have for you.
Yeah.
Everyone. Like, I feel
I,
bad. I sit and look at people and, and it's easy to judge and you're like, God, that guy should just get his shit together, but I was that guy, how many times people have told me, get your shit together? A lot, you know,
yeah.
you're like, what do you know? Well, unfortunately, you eventually get wise enough to know that someone actually did know and what they were saying, even though it sounded like it came from a place of judgment, may have been from a place of love. And it's hard,
Hmm.
so that's part of what I got to say today.
How about grounding?
I wanted
Just
to uh, eh, grounding.
grounding. Just grounding. Let's just start with grounding. If not silence, walk. I was a compulsive madman walker, and I still am. I still am. I'm always outside walking. Just if I can't sit with my thoughts right now, I can walk them out. That is something I started in my early recovery because I was losing my mind when my sponsor dragged me to a meditation group one time, and I thought I was going to jump out of my skin. But I can walk, and that's a very useful way for me with no devices, no music, no sound. So I'm listening to every single thing, and it's that's my still to this day my thing is grounding. Yeah, very important for me. But Kyle, you were
Yeah, I wanted to back it up a little bit, and you guys have you've touched on this a little bit, but what do y'all think about when we're trying to actually take responsibility, leaning into amending the actual behavior? So anyone who is familiar with any type of 12-step program knows that they're laid out in a very specific way so that we start off with some type of inventory where we are literally laying out all of the shit that we've done wrong, the
hmm
people that we've hurt, the people that have hurt us, what we've been victim to, and what we've kind of been prey to. And we go through this process of picking out the patterns and understanding all the character defects and all that kind of stuff. But I had asked earlier, it's like, okay, so now like what do we do with this? And for me, it came down to, for one, recognizing that this behavior existed in the first place, and then being honest with someone else that I have this behavior, so that like I'm not just like caught up in my own little delusion. But I think that there's the actionable step of telling someone else that like, hey, I've been doing this. It's, you know, it's like a little kid who like steals a cookie out of the cookie jar. You know, it's like he takes responsibility for stealing that cookie when he tells mommy that he stole the cookie, right? But then on top of that, and what you guys and Alan, you were talking a little bit about this. I think it's about really changing that actual behavior. And so when I think about the the person that I was when I was actively using, selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. Okay. And I had a list of behaviors and things that I had actually done to other people to harm them in some kind of way. So what it is, and what's in my control now, is that I feel responsible to go to these people that I have harmed and be like, hey, for one, this is what I've done. So I'm fessing up just like the kid stealing the cookie out of the cookie jar. But also, this is what I'm doing to change this behavior. And if there's something else that I can do to amend this in some way, so I'm not going to people and apologizing, because apologies don't mean shit coming out of my mouth. Because I think that for me in the past, like I've said I'm sorry a million times, but there was no actionable step to be able to change any of that type of behavior. But the part of like amending it and actually being willing to do the work to change something. So like, okay, I fucked up. This is what I'm gonna do to make sure that I don't fuck up again. I think that that has been so crucial for me, so that I'm not repeating the same thing over and over again. And I'm not, I'm not caught up in this pattern of selfish, like self-seeking behavior. And it's been so transformative for me. But I think that that's been like one of the greatest ways that I have been able to, for one, humble myself and to keep track of my behavior, but also there's a little bit of accountability in there too, that if I fuck up, I know in the back of my head now, because it's worked into my habits, like you guys were talking about. It's in my habit now that I have to go amend that behavior. I have to change that behavior. And there's part of me that doesn't want to have to fess up to the shit that I've done. And so I'm minding my P's and Q's, you know? And so I think that for me, that's kind of me taking responsibility for what I've done. It's like I am actually willing to change what I have done so that I do not harm you anymore, you know? Because I think that what you were talking about, Alan, about the guy getting struck by lightning, you know, and having like that rerun, dude. If I had died at the very end of my addiction, that would have been a fucking horror movie for me. That would have been a horrible thing for me to watch. And I think that, like, luckily, like, I was given another shot, and I've had a decade of sobriety now, where I think that I've changed my behavior to a certain extent. And I think that a lot of that came down to the ownership, you know, and being able to take that radical ownership of like, okay, this is what I've done, you know. Like Crow, you told me a long time ago, before we even started the podcast, you were talking about we have the gigantic shit pile, right? So when we're in active use, we have this gigantic shit pile, and we're sitting right in the middle of it. And the shit pile is made up of our character defects. It's made up of the selfishness, the dishonesty, like all, you know, all of like the literal things that we've done to other people. And part of like, you know, particularly addiction recovery is climbing up out of that pile of shit and standing on top and being like, this is my shit right here, you know? And I think that is
it doesn't stink as
so
bad.
No, it doesn't, right? It doesn't stink because it's not clogging your nostrils anymore, right? And I think that it goes into like what the 12-step programs tend to say about just cleaning up your side of the street, you know, because because in everyone's And I think that this is, we can broaden this out to more than just people in recovery, but I think that people litter their side of the street alarmingly often, right?
Mhm.
Like we say something that we shouldn't have done. We do something for personal gain that we probably shouldn't have done. We snub someone, or we omit a truth, or we do something. But over, like, 40, 50, 60 years, it's like, okay, now, I can't even walk down my street anymore because there's so much crap on it. And I think that's just I'm a huge advocate for just clean up your side of the street, take responsibility, change the behavior, move on with your damn life.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. That's it. Personal responsibility. What can
Hmm.
I do? And that's that. A lot of that, Alan, you spoke to this in today's day and age and culture, is we want instant gratification, and that also comes with sort of a reverse, an ironic caveat that if I want everything now, then that means I want all the information now and what it is going on in my feeds and TikTok and everything else. That must be the world today. And it's so big and I can't handle it and it's too much coming at me and oh, the world's going to hell. No, you do you. You do you. And you have to do you. Don't worry about the world. Don't worry about the news. Shut that shit off. Don't worry about your neighbors. Don't worry about anything, but you take care of you. And if everybody in the world did that, it'd be a completely different world. It would be a completely different world if everybody just took personal inventory and responsibility. It would be a completely different world. So, what can you do? What you can do is work on you. And it starts and it real I mean, that's it. I can't, the way I see people is always going to be a mess until that's living, uh, that's the issue is too many people live outside in. We need to be living inside out. So the world becomes a better looking place. It's a more beautiful place. The more I take responsibility for me, my vantage point changes, my perspective of things change. So as they say and also in the step programs, they say that the things that used to bother us no longer bother us. And it's right because your filter has gotten a hell of a lot more discerning and you don't let shit ruffle you that's just noise. And they talk about all the people like Steve Jobs and the Elon Musks, they have this 80-20 rule where they get 80% things done and they have 20% noise, the noise of the stockbrokers and the business and the 20%, but 80% is discipline and personal action that they're taking. Unless you have a guy like Elon Musk, he's about 100. He runs on about 100. So thus the things he accomplishes and gets done because he's not noise. He's not outside. He's inside to out. Nobody will tell me how my day's going to go. I'll decide how my day's going to go. But most of the world is, hey, how's your day going? Well, I don't know yet. Give me a minute and we'll see what comes at me. Then I'll report back with my mood. What a shitty way to live your life. Own that. And I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you reminded me of the shit pile because once you do, it smells a lot better when you own it and you realize it's all your perspective that was making that thing so bad or so important to you. And it doesn't stink as bad when you're up there. And the view's a lot better because your perspective changes.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is a great topic, Alan.
Yeah. Well,
This is a great one today, brother.
We're weaving a lot of threads into the concept, but a few times, on a couple of podcasts, I've had my Jocko shirt on and that,
Mm-hmm.
his book, Extreme Ownership, was very key to me, realizing that you got to just own whatever happens. And on the back of the most recent shirt I have says discipline equals freedom, which it really does. If you get that discipline, right? And that's what
Amen.
a lot of my
Amen.
friends like, this is so hard. And there's a little South Park, you lack discipline guy, that I'll send them. I'm like, and I send it to myself. Like, I'm like, man, I really am lacking. Like the other day, I don't want to work out. So I'm like, I'm going to text myself the you lack discipline guy. And, when I first was trying to get up, and this when I was working still, was I would get up at like 4 to work out. And I had this little Jocko thing where he's like, you got 10 seconds to get out of bed and get this, no excuses. And I'd be like, oh, I'm so tired. I just want to sleep. And I'm like, oh shit, Jocko's gonna kick my ass. So I better get down there, So um, but owning things is hard,
Mhm.
like it's
Mhm.
way easier to place blame outside of yourself and then do whatever you do to cope with whatever's happened to you than actually say, man, I got myself into this pile of crap, you know? Like, I'm gonna blame whoever,
Victimhood.
Yeah, and I think, there's some level of modern world where victimhood is like, a badge of honor almost. Like, all these people did this to me, No, you really did it to yourself. Like my crazy hoarder neighbor, like she had this house out in Pennsylvania that she inherited and didn't take care of and didn't pay the tax bills on and has been going out there every year. And she's got a hoard in this house and a hoard in that house. And then she had to go to court when she was out this summer. And the city's like, look, the roof has holes in it, this and that. And it's, it's
Mhm.
not her fault. It's this and that. So finally, her neighbor was like, look, I'll buy the house, but this is what's going on. I'm going to pay all your tax liens. I'm going to pay this and this. So she ended up walking with $600 when all said and done from selling this family house in Pittsburgh. And it's, someone else's fault that this all happened. I'm like, no, it really isn't. You're an 80-year-old woman that's been living the same way forever, blaming your husband, blaming society, blaming whatever for all these problems that happen to you that are all self-inflicted. It's like that
Mhm.
little Scooby Doo thing, that meme where, the guy, the blonde dude pulls, who's causing all my problems, pulls the mask off the guy and it's him. That's what it is. Your problems are your problems. Bottom line. So either you own up to them, make a plan, and stick to it, even if it takes you 10 years. My goal for my current weight loss is Phoebe's birthday in June. And according to because I'm a spreadsheet guy, the spreadsheet's showing me the day after her birthday. So I got to up my game a little. So it's the day before. And not that it matters. If it ends up being a year from now and I'm at fighting weight, I'm happy. If I'm back to 280 or whatever I weighed years ago, I'm not going to be happy. But whose fault is it? Yesterday, I haven't eaten any bread other than sourdough and very little of that for 10 years. I had a hamburger with a bun and I had three little beignets. Haven't had anything like that in years. And it tasted good. But this morning I woke up, I'm like, my guts kind of hurt because I got the gene for celiac or whatever. I'm like,
Mhm.
was that worth it? No, but no one put that fucking donut in your mouth. No one said order that burger with a bun, It's like blaming the spoon for what the ice cream did. No, it's not the spoon or the ice cream. It's your fat ass's problem, right? So, you know,
I
own,
love it.
own. So I woke up this morning and I owned it, and you know, I like, and I could feel that stuff working its through my pipes, and I'm like, oh god damn, And I got on the throne, and I was like, well, here you go.
Here
This
you
is
go.
you
This is your
you ate that. You knew what was going to happen. So
yeah.
so you got to own it, and it sucks sometimes, but once you get through it in your guys' lives, I mean, case in point, if you looked at your life 11 years ago, either of you, compared to now, I mean, I was there.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Not good.
It was a terrible experience for everyone involved, And I agree with Kyle, the same with you. And when I was at my worst, it was a terrible experience for everyone involved.
But here we cleaned it up, man. We're turning it around. Now every one of us are serving.
Right.
And it's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
So it's possible, but we all faced to circle back. To where we started, we all faced what we were running from. We stopped running, and maybe that's the first step. Stop running and say, what am I running from?
And notice when it does creep in again.
Right.
Because it creeps in. It has a tendency to.
Oh, it always does.
Yeah, always will. All right, Kyle. Does that kind of answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I was thinking as you were talking, Alan, you said that, I mean, we managed to weave a whole bunch of different threads into that, but I think I liked where that went today. I think that was good. And
cool.
I am grateful
cool.
for.
Yeah.
I am grateful for, I got to talk to a buddy that I haven't talked to, a buddy that I haven't seen in probably 8 years. And I don't know, talk something about, it was a buddy that he actually ran the sober living house that I got sober at, and he got me into the a lot of the forgiveness work and the rebirthing breath work, and like a whole, but like I just have like this profound respect for this person, and I haven't talked to him in a while, and it kind of like reignited something in my spirituality that I haven't looked at in a while, and I'm incredibly grateful for just grateful that I got to speak with him, and I'm grateful for kind of what the future holds. I am, Alan, I've been doing that thing about that Mark Manson said about looking into the future, to almost like bring abundance. And so I'm grateful for all of the lessons and opportunities and blessings that I have in my future, whatever the universe would have that be. And I have been I also got to see a couple of buddies that I haven't seen in a long time over the holiday. And it was, I think I'm really big on getting back into the community right now, because I've been a little bit isolated out here for a long time, but I'm starting to really like gain a sense of community, getting back in touch with friends that I haven't talked to. So I'm grateful for that too.
Nice.
What do you guys got?
Nice. Well, I like what you had said about my first grateful for right now off the top is the weather. So I don't know what you guys are getting out there in Georgia, Kyle, but man, Colorado is just stunning. If they'd leave our skies alone, it's a whole nother topic, but boy, every single day would be cloud free out here. And it's just hot. It's just beautiful. And I like hot. So I'm sorry for the ski folks in the mountains. I really am, and that industry. But I love it, and I'm grateful for that, for the amount of sun, and I'm grateful for always my health. My health. I just feel great, and it's very, very important to me, especially as I become seasoned. Nice way to put it. And also, I'm very, very grateful because I too, Kyle, have had people in my past, and in this sense, it's past clients that I might run into at the gym. I run into them at the store, and they're 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 4 years sober, and I helped lift them up at a time when they were just starting on their journey, and they're doing great, and they still remember the things I said, which I don't even remember at all. But it helped them and it was useful at the time during their journey. So it just makes me feel so good to have that, to get to do this and live this way is just a life of fulfillment. Not always happy. I don't care about happy anymore. I like fulfillment. I'm going for fulfillment. And I'm getting it, man. I'm getting it all the way around. I could go on for days, but I'll stop there with just those top three. So, Alan, what do you have?
Alan, you're muted.
You're muted.
I do. Can you hear
There
me?
we go.
All right.
Right. So, like I was saying to no one in my muted moment, I am really grateful for how nice the weather's been. But I am very concerned that the forest fires could be bad if we don't get some moisture.
Yeah.
I was out in the backyard yesterday. We actually have flowers up. The honeysuckle is about to bloom. Lilacs are leafing out, which none of this really happens usually when it's cold and snowy. So I'm hoping for a good wet spring, lots of snow, and maybe not down here. Rain would be fine. But it is pretty nice. Like we were driving yesterday in the mountains and, got the sunroof open and the windows down
Mm.
uh, and I'm grateful, this is going to be like the weirdest thing, but because we make fun of social media, but I follow these like feng shui masters on Instagram. And I'm really grateful for them because, they give you little mantras to start your morning. So I've been doing these things where I wake up every morning and say, I'm going to live joyfully and this and that. And my attitude has been way better, you know? And so I'm grateful for those kind of things. Like, they talk about self talk or talking about other people just because your brain, and they don't really go into this, but we discussed this. Your brain doesn't know the difference if you're talking bad about someone or yourself, your subconscious. So if you're like saying someone's whatever, this, that, your brain thinks you're talking to yourself. So it's been like a week where I've been very conscientious about how I'm talking to myself and how I'm starting my day with gratitude and trying to bring joy into my life. And it's been really nice. Like it's all this kind of, stuff that I would have made fun of years ago, this kind of woo woo stuff actually works. And the funny thing is, apparently, one of these guys was talking about colors you could wear for the year based on your Chinese zodiac sign. And I'm a dragon. I'm a dragon. Um, so it said I can't wear black this year because I'll absorb too much energy from other people, and it could be negative energy. And if you guys know, I love wearing black. Like half of my wardrobe is black. So consciously put on apparently the colors that are good for me this year are yellow, purple, browns, coffee tones. So I'll have a new wardrobe this year for the podcast. So
emo. He's going emo.
yeah. So it's funny, like who knows if this works, but I think it's partly the intention. Like my intention is I'm going to draw good energy. And if this theoretically kind of woo woo stuff says that I'm going to draw bad energy, well, what's the harm if I, I mean,
Right.
I might wear black. Like if I was hanging out with you guys, I'm going to wear black because I'm going to pick up good vibes. But, if I go to the store or whatever, I don't know, but I'm doing it and it makes me feel better. So screw them all if people laugh and whatever. And then, third thing, I'm really grateful for my sleep. I posted a thing on Instagram about my little sleep process and the level of crazy. But man, I've been like my aura ring scores have been off the charts. Last 2 nights, not so much because the dogs have been in and out and in and out, and they go out and hunt mice or something out back and bark. So, but even to me, a crappy night's sleep is like they give you a crown if you're over 85. It's like 87, which I was talking to my neighbor's mom. She noticed I had the ring on, and she said she never gets over 60. And I've never gotten below like 70 at my worst, like when I had COVID. Um, I told her, I said, to me, terrible is 85. And she's like, I would kill for 85. So then she, asked me about my procedure. And then I showed her, and they made me do this Instagram post where I was showing the red flicker free red lights and the linen sheets and the Faraday sheets and the Wi-Fi off and all the stuff I do, and the phone that goes either grayscale or red once the sun goes down, not just night shift. So I kind of, I'm grateful that I get really good sleep. And I've been really pondering the foundation of health and my theory. And this is, I'm not a doctor, so we'll just take it there. But I think you got sleep is number one, sun is number two, diet is number three, exercise is four. Like, you can't exercise yourself away from a bad diet. A good diet isn't going to help if you're not getting sunlight or good sleep, so I sit there and kind of run the calculations on what's most important. And I'm still saying sleep is, if your body's not reset and if you're not getting all that crap out of your brain, dead cells, because you're not getting deep sleep, you're not gonna, your health isn't, it's going to be okay, but not great. So that's what I'm grateful for. It was long winded, as most of my things were today, but anyhow, it was a fun one.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the podcast, and all the listeners. If you're over there listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just make sure you're checking us out over on YouTube. Like, subscribe, all those fun things that we have to do over there. We're over on Instagram right now too, at I think it's the lighter.mind on Instagram. So just make sure that you're supporting us. I mean, everything is even a follow or a like or anything like that really helps us. And yeah, that's all we got. All right, check us out on the next episode.